is John Young from the Disc Jockey News and Disc Jockey News TV. And tonight we're kind of kicking off a new segment. But first, I'd like to introduce my good friend, Ben Stowe. Good evening, Ben.
Hey, John. How are you?
Wonderful, wonderful. Glad to have you here tonight. Been really excited and looking forward to this for quite a while.
Well, me too, John. I'm honored that you asked. We got to stop doing this so late at night, though. So I just get goofier and goofier. I don't know. People are wonder what's up with this guy.
I understand. I think one of the last times that Ben and I were on video together was coming from Las Vegas, actually. We did what time was that at night? That must have been 10, 11 o'clock at night from the exhibit hall in Las Vegas.
Yeah, local time, I don't even know. That was, of course, I think the third show in 3 weeks for me, and it was in the middle of a 5-week road trip. And, of course, this is right after daylight savings time. So why do you do this to me?
Yeah, we're really trying to mess you up. Well, but we wanted to get this and get started because, we've had many discussions on different conventions and such, getting questions answered because, a lot of people have questions when it comes to gear. And as I've mentioned in other videos, you're my guy when it comes to having questions about stuff. And yeah, we're going to kick off this new segment called, did we ever come up with a name for this segment?
I don't know. I don't think so. I
think this will be a contest.
That's right, yeah. Name this segment because it's way too late for us to think coherently.
So name this. This will be a segment. We're going to do this on a regular basis. We're going to come out on Tuesday nights. Name this segment. And Ben, if they want to send a name suggestion in, what's the Twitter that they should hashtag it to?
Tweet me at NLFXBen. It's @ N as in November, L as in Lima, F as in Foxtrot, X as in X-ray, and the Ben part should be fairly self-explanatory, right? Bravo, Echo, November. But
I'm hoping.
Can't you put like a clever graphic up there?
That would have been, if it would be earlier in the day, we'd have had such cool things like that.
Next time I'm bringing a whiteboard.
Yeah, exactly. Where's a piece of paper and a marker? We'll go.
I know. Yeah.
Where's Kat? Kat, you're the one who's prepared. Come on.
Yeah, if only she was here. So.
Yeah, unfortunately. So, cool. So this will be a regular thing, and what I wanted to talk about, we had a couple of things we want to talk for questions tonight. But first off, you mentioned you've been traveling an awful lot. What conventions? What are the things you've been doing? I've only seen you, at a DJ convention. So where else has the road taken you?
Well, story of my life, John. I guess it's an interesting tale of the many Bens. I was thinking the other day when somebody referred to me as their audio guy, which of course, I'm honored that anybody thinks of me as anything that's useful. That's a good thing. But I was thinking about all the football programs that we serve, with the coaching communication systems, the wireless two-way intercoms, and to them, I'm their headset guy.
Nice.
Of course, in about 4 weeks, we're going to do the Lighting Symposium. To those people, I'm the lighting guy. I guess, it's like Red Green says, if you can't be handsome, you better be handy. So I just try to be whatever guy they need me to be.
So you're doing college auditoriums, different things. Your travels must take you across the nation.
Yeah, really across the world. I've worked on 4 different continents. I've worked in Tokyo and London and Spain and the Dominican. And, again, I'm just grateful to work wherever it is. And, whether it's with a DJ, we work with a number of professional sports teams and a number of concert tours. And, it doesn't really matter to me. I mean, I don't mean to say that a gig's a gig, but, I'm just grateful that anybody wants to work with us. And we take every customer's needs very seriously.
Sure. Now, for those who aren't familiar with NLFX Pro, you guys are based out of Bemidji, Minnesota. Can you tell us a little bit about life in Bemidji, Minnesota?
It's cold.
Oh, that was quick.
Yeah, what else do you need to know? It's a beautiful small town about 200 miles north of Minneapolis. That's hard for some people really to grasp. They think Minnesota is Minneapolis, and I have some great airport stories where people are trying to figure out how to fly me out of Bemidji. When we have an airport here in Bemidji, just fly me out of Bemidji. But they don't understand it's a 5-hour drive to Minneapolis. To fly out of there if that's what I wanted to do. But it's a beautiful small city. It's actually the headwaters of the Mississippi River. You can literally step across the river up here. Obviously, with Mardi Gras and all that, we have one up here too, since we're on the opposite end of the river. So, with love to our friends down in New Orleans, it's just a great small city in northern Minnesota. Clean water, clean air, and plenty of cold temperatures.
Yep. No, it's a beautiful area up there in northern Minnesota. So for those wondering, how far are you from the Canadian border? Because that's a question I've actually had asked of me. It's like, they're really close to Canada, aren't they?
Well, and ironically, I was talking to some guys who want to hire me to come up to Winnipeg today. So we're at our closest point about 80 miles south of the Canadian border. About 100 miles driving, though, as the road goes, you know.
Cool. So now you've been in the DJ industry, audio industry. What's kind of give me a little bit of a history. Now, when did the DJ world, and when did you start getting into the retail side?
Well, this would be a great place for some props. I'd love to show my my homemade coffee cans. I got into the industry in 1993, and it's interesting because it's been kind of a winding road. I started, I guess, as a manufacturer. It really was unintentional. It was a means just to try to pay some bills. I moved out of my parents' house, and I was still in high school, and found out real fast. What that meant to try to pay some rent, and ended up in a homeless shelter, and decided that wasn't a good long-term plan. So was making some things in the high school electronics shop and selling them to classmates, strobe lights, color organs, basic lighting controllers, various widgets and gizmos. And it was actually by accident that some friends of ours put on a dance at their local church, and we went there, and all they had was one singular strobe light going the whole time. And we said, well, that's kind of lame. And my friend said, hey, couldn't you do better? And I said, probably, yeah. We'll put our heads together and we came up with some stuff. And so, the battle of the church dances was on, and we put on one at my church, and we had a few more things going on. And somebody asked the all-important question. They said, what do you charge? I said, wait a minute, you can make money doing this?
No, you're kidding.
I'm like, get out of here. So thus began my career as a DJ, and it was 15 great years. But, the retail really just kind of came right from the manufacturing side. As people were asking for things, people kept saying, well, Ben's the guy to go to. He'll make you this, he'll make you that. And then one day I realized that somebody else was already making this stuff in mass quantities. And I might be better served, my customers would be better served if I just, became a reputable retailer for them. So. Sure. So we first met back in, it'd been the early 2000s, I'm thinking, wasn't it? I lost you the minute there, John. I'm sorry.
We first met, I think, back in the early 2000s. Or was it in the 90s? Yeah, somewhere in that ballpark.
It had to be, yeah. It was, I think, prior to the first Map DJ, show, as it were. It had to be in the late 90s, early. Yeah. Gosh, it's hard to imagine. It's been 20 years doing this. It's hard to believe.
Yeah, it's crazy how time has changed and things. Yeah, I guess that means we're getting old.
One of my kids pointed out that I have some gray hair. I don't know if it shows up on the camera, but anyway.
No, it doesn't. And no, you don't.
Thank you. Oh, good. It's all natural.
It's all natural. This is what wrestling does to you.
Yeah, well, luckily I don't have the cauliflower ears. I always wore my headgear pretty religiously. So,
of course, anyway. It's the hockey fights in the office, but we won't go there for this night. Well, so you've been in it for a long time. You've been the DJ side of it, and of course the retail side, and now you mentioned the Lighting Symposium. You're getting into more training. Kind of tell us, what brought that, and how that's kind of evolving as part of your Ben persona.
Well, it's interesting. There's an old saying: the more things change, the more they stay the same. And my origins into the industry are really directly tied to education. Although I was the recipient. As a young kid, I benefited greatly from a neighbor who ran a TV repair shop out of his house. We were very close. We actually called him Grandma and Grandpa, our neighbors. They were, age appropriate to be our grandparents. They weren't biologically, but we just kind of adopted them, and they adopted us. And
sure.
And so I really, I grew up in his TV repair shop, and he was a retired college electronics professor. So his passion and his wherewithal to teach were certainly intact. And that was great. In fact, the irony is, I really didn't see this as a career. I was taking high school electronics for an easy A. I was just sort of to pad my GPA, and of course, it became a necessary parachute. When I found myself out of the house, and
Sure.
so interesting that it's something that I found that I share that passion for, and really early on. I think even before we formally called it education, we just called it discussions in the office. A customer comes in and asks a question,
Mm-hmm.
you're educating. And then that led to recognizing, the opportunity to teach and, wanting to share that passion with people and help them become more educated users, better equipped to do their jobs, and it's just continued to grow, and of course the Pro Academy DVD series that was launched a couple of years ago, and a number of consulting and training gigs where I'm now regularly hired out to come train, and and again it's what could you ask for to be better than that, to be able to feed your family doing something you love doing.
Yeah, for sure. Nice. Yeah, and with your training and as you're training the customer, I mean, that's taken you to speak at the Disc Jockey News events. We've had you speak at a couple. We've been fortunate enough to have you there.
That's the highlight of my career right there. That's the highlight.
The check's in the mail.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. Honestly, it's a great event, and that's obviously your viewers should know that they need to come to Minnesota for the conclave. But it's a great event. It was an honor to be a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, you've been here. You've done seminars in Las Vegas. Have you been to what other shows have you been? You've been to numerous. How many? Some of the others you've spoken at. What are some of them?
Oh gosh, it's hundreds.
Yeah.
Literally, I was at the BPM show in the United Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke for a variety of groups in the United States, all over. I guess I wouldn't even know where to start at this point.
Because you've done numerous, and a lot of the training. Of course, you're talking about lights now. I just in the Lighting Symposium, you're doing some training with DMX software. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What are you going to be doing with that?
Well, we're going to get our hands dirty. I mean, we're going to roll up our sleeves, and we're going to really go under the hood of Chevet's Show Express program, and we're going to kind of go through each module. We're going to talk about the software, the way it was intended to be used. And then we're going to talk about some little useful hacks that I've found, and look, that's just
Yeah.
My mom used to say, "Can't you leave well enough alone?" And I said, "No, nothing was ever improved by leaving well enough alone." So there's a faster way to do it. By golly, we're going to look at it.
Nice.
We're going to have a lot of fun, and of course, I'm surrounded by a great cast of fellow presenters. We're going to cover. Gosh, I mean, topics from design to programming, not just in Show Express, but also Luminaire, some physics of light. We've got a Broadway lighting designer coming in. We've got an ETCP certified rigger coming in to talk about some rigging basics and rigging safety. We've got some professional designers coming in that do decor and interior design, and they're going to talk about not just the design aspect, but also creating good partnerships for more profitability between vendors, instead of just showing up on game day and saying, "Well, I got my lights. What did the florist do?" Let's do this like an architect would. Let's get all the trades together and let's talk about this so we have a game plan. And then of course my co-anchor, I guess, Mike Fernino, he runs a successful multi-op out on the East Coast, and he's going to come in and talk about selling and the things that at the end of the day, none of the talent or gear does you any good if you can't sell it, right? So.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I've seen that. Sounds like an awesome event, and unfortunately for those of you who are watching, I saw that the last seat was sold 2 days ago. So
yeah, sold out 5 weeks prior to the event. We sold out, and we actually added more seats this year, and we just couldn't add anymore. We want to keep it, within a manageable size. We want to make sure that we're able to give attendees enough individual attention. And we want it to be kind of a small, intimate event.
Yeah. No, I've talked to quite a few people who attended last year, the very first one, and the raving reviews. It sounded like it was an incredible night. And looking at this year, boy, you guys are going to be topping what a great show last year, even.
Well, I think Mike and I are good. we're a good, yin and yang. We each have different areas of talents, and Mike is just tremendous at what he does. But one of the things, selling is his thing, and I told him, I said, well, we sold out, but that's the easy part. The event has to be over the top. And he said, you said that last year. And I said, yes, and I'm going to say it again. And, he's totally on board with it too, which is great. But that's the real challenge. The attendees have honored us with their commitment. Now we need to step up and we know that we have people from all different areas, of skill. Some people are coming in very qualified, and they're going to come away with one or two nuggets. Other people, may have their brains just turned to goo. But, we want to expose them to some of these things. We want to send them out into the real world with a skill set that they can be profitable with. Yeah. And I'm really excited about what we put together this year. I am. Although I'll say this, John, kudos to people like you who do events. Because as much fun, as successful as last year was, I didn't want to do another one. I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm too busy. I'm spoiled. Yeah. I'm used to flying in as somebody's speaker, with my rider, and you're familiar with that process. Going to the stage and doing my thing and getting on a plane and going home. Yep. Man, what a tremendous amount of work to put on an event. So hats off to you.
Yeah, they can be. But when you can go and you can change lives, it makes it all worthwhile. Just that one little aspect of it.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. For me, the passion is definitely there. It's so exciting to, I saw a Facebook post today from a customer that I spent quite a lot of time with, talking about lighting and teaching him, and there were just comment after comment from other people saying, "Wow, how'd you do that?" And this is If he's watching, he knows I'm proud of him. I mentioned it to him, and I don't mean that in a patronizing way. Look, he did the work. He earned those accolades, but just to have been a small part of that process, I was cheering for him. I said, yeah, that's great. Yep. Look at that. What a fantastic job with the tools that I was a part of. And so I'm really excited about our customer success. That's what really gets me going.
Oh, for sure. It's great stuff. Good stuff indeed. Well, we're at about our 20-minute point here. We're getting close to that. We had a couple of questions I wanted to...
Nobody's awake anymore.
Yeah, nobody's awake anymore. That we bored them to death. So we'll do the questions at the end so no one can argue with us. And by the way, if people have questions for us to handle in future episodes, they would tweet us again one more time. Give us the Twitter, the hashtag.
At NLFXBen.
So if you have a question, anything you want to ask Mr. Ben Stowe, who is a wealth of knowledge, whether it's dealing with lighting, with audio, with electricity. I mean, now the official title of your electrical license. What is that level?
We have a company license, and I have a personal license as an electrical contractor in the state of Minnesota. A class of license they call a technology systems contractor.
So that's better than my 9th grade. Hook your battery up to this terminal, and you hook the switch up to that terminal, and you make the light go on.
Well, I think the good folks at the state of Minnesota would like to think so.
There's a vote of confidence.
I'll tell you what. I'm trying to make a thing for our Twitter people here, so I apologize. Bear with me 2 seconds. Oh. And we'll go back to the state license. Oh, no. This is...
and ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens when we're doing live TV, is that we can
live,
do that.
Live TV. I was trying to do it on my phone, on a little whiteboard app on my phone, but it's just not going to work. The State Board of Electricity takes it, really seriously here. And we're required to obviously meet a set of criteria to be eligible to take the test, and then of course we have to pass the test, and then every license renewal, which is 2 years, we have to have 16 hours of continuing education. And I'm a glutton for punishment. I also have a couple certifications that require continuing education, and I'm pursuing yet another one. Now I'm pursuing my ETCP as well. So all I'm going to do, I think, for the rest of my life is sit in class. And I think that's what's kind of neat about it. People often in your viewers often see me on the other side of the podium, but I think it's important to note that myself and just about every other successful person that I know spends a lot of time as attendees too. learning is a constant process, and we're not prideful. We're very humble, and we're eager to learn. And I spend a lot of time attending trainings as well as conducting them. So
sure, very cool, very cool. Okay, we got to get our questions before we get too terribly late and people.
I'm stalling so we don't get any,
Yeah. Well, the first question I've had, and I've had this from a lot of people, there's a lot of confusion around wireless microphone frequencies, what's happening with that, how they're changing. Without getting too technical, because I happen to I happen to run into you once where you got a little technical.
Once?
There was that one time. But kind of walk us through. Now, we've got our old UHF, and some of us have got some VHF stuff, and we hear things. Kind of what's happened with our old systems, and what do we need to be doing if we're looking to buy a new system? What should we be looking for? So kind of take us through that, Ben.
Well, radio waves and radio frequency modulation as a whole is confusing because you can't see it. It's invisible, and it's really not understood by a lot of people. I think there's something happens between here, and somehow the signal gets there and it just works, or it doesn't, and then we get mad. Mm-hmm. But of course, there's a lot going on, and in terms of, you mentioned some frequency bands like VHF and UHF, and then of course there's the ISM bands, 900 megahertz, 2.4 gigahertz, 5.8 gigahertz now, and I think the big burning question is, what should I get? Where should I go? I'm fond of saying that the correct answer to every engineering question is it depends. But it doesn't, and of course now there's a lot of talk, recently the FCC, took away 698 to 806, and now there's talk about what's next. And the really short version is nobody knows. There's some pretty good theories on the table. We know that the FCC intends to conduct a voluntary auction where they are going to ask TV stations operating in the upper 600 megahertz range to and maybe all of 600 megahertz, we don't know yet, to voluntarily move and or give up their frequencies. Now, these TV stations can just choose to go off the air and take the proceeds of the auction. They can voluntarily move to another frequency, or they can do nothing. And if they do nothing, then the FCC may decide, we need, 50 megahertz of this 600 megahertz bandwidth to continue to feed our appetite for wireless devices. I mean, we are consuming more and more data, and we want it faster and faster. And to accommodate that bandwidth need, something's got to give. And there is a lot of white space between TV stations, and that's where we live in UHF, is the space between those TV stations. And so they're saying, well, how can we more efficiently and more effectively use this bandwidth? Mm-hmm. To kind of characterize it, I think somebody said that there were like 100 million iPhones sold in the first quarter, and I can tell you that there haven't been 100 million wireless microphones sold in the history of all of man. So, we need to understand where we rank here, I think. But that doesn't mean that it's, all gloom and doom. Now people say, well, where do I go? I mean, I just got kicked out of 700 megahertz. Now if I get kicked out of 600 megahertz, there's still a lot of bandwidth left from 470 to 602 in UHF. There's still a lot there, but of course we're going to pack more stuff in it. And nobody knows for sure really what's going to happen. There's a lot of other bands that are coming available. Department of Defense is going to abandon a couple bands. There's another band that the FCC is supposed to decide what's going to happen. And let's not forget that the change from 698, and 806, the change to that took something like 10 years to actually get done. I mean, this is a process, and I've sat through a number of the webcasts, and I've read a number of the writings, and I've had some correspondence with other people really involved in the process, and we know some change is going to happen, but we don't know exactly what. So here's the punchline, if anybody's still listening. If you need a wireless microphone today, or you need a wireless in-ear monitoring system, or a wireless intercom system, or a wireless speaker system, or a wireless anything, and you were to ask me where I would go to UHF. If you want to really hedge your bets, go in the lower part, of the 600s, or go in the 500s, and then you're likely to be largely unaffected by whatever comes. But at any rate, whatever does happen probably isn't going to hit the streets until 2018.
Oh, wow.
Well, I mean, we have to look at it. With all due respect to our elected officials and the hardworking men and women of the U.S. government, this is the government. And, you know, they had already intended to have this auction that they now say they're going to probably have in mid-2015. With credit to Mr. Wheeler, who's the chair of the SEC, he has said, look, we're not going to botch this rollout. And I don't want to raise politics, but we all recall a recent other government rollout that just didn't go as smooth as everybody hoped, right? And Mr. Wheeler actually kind of alluded to it and said, hey, we're not going to do that. We're going to make sure we have our ducks in a row before we have this auction. So maybe mid-2015 doesn't happen.
Sure.
That's to be seen. And then again, depending on what the TV stations do, the FCC has to have some time to create policy and make a plan. So, I think you're going to be just fine using, those wirelesses until 2017 or 18, and maybe forever. I doubt forever. Let's be honest about that. Now, there's a lot of talk about the ISM bands going into 2.4. Increasingly we're seeing a lot of problems there, and it's just simply because there isn't a lot of bandwidth. I'm not knocking it, but there are companies that make both UHF and 2.4 gigahertz based products, and they'll tell you their pro users are still operating in UHF, and it's largely due to the limited amount of bandwidth in 2.4 and the increasing amount of devices in there.
Sure.
I'm not knocking it, but I wouldn't use it for live audio, that's for sure. It's fine for something that's a buffered signal or something that's a very small, slow signal like DMX. I talked to a guy the other day who says, well, I'm using a 2.4 gigahertz mic and it hasn't given me any problems. Well, good, kudos, keep using it.
Sure.
It doesn't matter to me. But when I pin my advice on something, I try to stand behind it, and I wouldn't feel good recommending that to anybody.
Sure. Okay, so that's good to know. The UHF mics that a person can buy today are still going to be with us for a few years. But now you're talking about, of course, the 2.4 and different things, and specifically let's look at audio now, because one of the big things that guys are wanting to do is have that wireless speaker capability. Whether it's Bluetooth is becoming popular at NAMM. I mean, gosh, I bet there were 8 different speakers that that weren't there last year that were here this year with Bluetooth capability. Let's talk about some wireless audio technology with that. I mean, is there what's going to be reliable? What's going to be something people can actually use and trust at shows?
Well, here again, we have to understand technologies for what they are. In Bluetooth, even the extended Bluetooth, I don't think I would trust it outside of 30 feet. I know there are some that people say they can get to work maybe, further distances. To each their own. That's not what Bluetooth really was intended for. I would go with an in-ear monitoring type system, UHF based. And here again, if you're operating in the 500 megahertz or low 600s, you may be completely unaffected by whatever changes come anyway. So it may be a non-issue for you no matter what. You still have great audio carriers. You have very, time-tested and proven technology. If we look at the major concert tours that are going on right now, and artists who make their money by their ability to perform, and their performance hinges on them hearing what's going on, they're using UHF in-ear monitoring systems. And that's where I would go. The problem with remote speakers is if I put a speaker 100 feet away from me, across an event, and I have a problem, I have to get to it. And first of all, I have to know there's a problem to get there.
Yeah.
And you may not know until somebody's so fed up that they come and complain. So I think signal reliability is paramount.
Yeah.
I think it's even more sensitive than a wireless microphone because you can more quickly react to a situation there. You're aware of it right away, and you can react to it. Whereas a wireless speaker, if you're blasting static at a high level, you're going to lose friends fast.
Yeah, for sure.
So I like the wireless in-ear monitoring systems, because you can rack mount the transmitter, you can remotely place the antenna that gives us, a better fighting chance of getting our signal from point A to point B. We can upgrade to, a half-wave dipole or a log periodic or some type of antenna that's going to give us higher gain, and we can AC power this transmitter. And of course, most of them we can put in a stereo signal, so we can put our left and right signal into the wireless transmitter, and then at each receiver we can either pan to the left or the right, or we can sum them and say I want a full sum of the left and right signal at this speaker. To me, it's just the most ideal solution with the highest degree of reliability. These artists don't want static blasting in their ears either. So.
Yeah, for sure. Very cool. Very cool. Well, those are my two questions. For one of our future shows, I think that the antenna side of it, we need to dig into that a little bit more when it, because I know, if when a person is running multiple microphones, you and I have had the conversation in the past that there's ways to combine antennas and have better quality antennas than that come with the little factory antennas.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's kind of the final punchline on wireless. I was talking to a friend of mine who coordinates radio frequency for large concerts and things like that, and we were discussing what we think is going to happen and what we're going to do about it. I worked the last 3 college football national championship games coordinating radio frequencies, and so all of us are kind of thinking about what this means for us professionally. Whatever comes next, right?
Yep.
And he says, I think the days of the Wild West are going to be over. That hope is not a plan, right? We can't just show up to a gig and turn on our wireless and hope for the best. We're going to have to become better educated as consumers, and you and Disc Jockey News could be an essential conduit in helping to educate people so that they can continue to operate wirelessly.
Sure.
It's still going to be available. You're just going to have to be a bit savvier about how to do it, I think.
You think the day is going to come where in a given geographic region that people are going to be literally, I don't want to say subscribing to a group of frequencies, but that might become the case where that such as a large venue would have certain frequencies that become theirs in that geographic location, similar to radio stations. If you're in a specific spot, you're 92.4, and you're the only one within a geographic region that can have it. Is that something that you see down the line that may get to that point?
Well, I think anything's possible. There already are systems in place for licensed users. Unfortunately, disc jockeys can't become licensed users even if they want to. That's reserved for more like the media and that sort of thing. But there are ways with those sorts of things. And the FCC is, I'll say this, the FCC, even though we are the really small fish in the pond, the FCC has looked upon us and houses of worship and stadium broadcasts, entertainment, all the uses of wireless mic. They've looked on us favorably. They haven't swept us aside like they could. That's really encouraging. They've acknowledged that wireless microphones are ubiquitous in today's world, and it's in the best interest of everybody and their ability to be entertained or worship and those sorts of things if they can try to find a way for it all to work.
Sure.
So, I don't know that we'll see blocks like that assigned, at the mobile DJ level, but who knows where it's going to go.
Yeah.
I think one thing's for sure, we're going to see innovation. If you're a company like Sennheiser or Shure or Audio-Technica where, a large part of your revenue is selling microphones, you can bet those engineers are hard at work. And they're being pretty tight-lipped about what they're working on because this really could be the next big thing. Mm-hmm. And, it might be 10 years down the road or longer. It maybe won't be. But I think we're going to see some exciting changes in wireless technology in the coming years simply because it's necessary, and necessity is the mother of invention.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, thank you, Ben. We're at a little over half hour. I don't want to keep you too long here tonight. So people have questions. Once again, they can send a message to you at symbol NLFXBen. They have any you can put comments in the description below if you have something. If you're not a Twitter user and you see this video on YouTube. Comments description below, and we will address those and such at one of our next broadcasts.
We'll get some clever graphics.
Yeah, we'll work on the graphics so we can have all that across the bottom. This is our trial run to see how everything would work. We're in Minnesota. It gets really cold. You never know when things freeze up on us.
True story.
Crazy stuff. Well, Ben, thank you very much for your time this evening, and we'll be back. If things work out, we'll be back next week with our second episode.
As long as they don't cancel my pilot, right?
That's right. Oh, yes, and the name. We need an idea for our Tuesday night name, our session with Ben. So if you've got a name, comments below, tweet, whatever works for you.
Please come up with a clever name so I don't get canceled. My ego couldn't take the blow.
Yeah, exactly. We're low budget and we still got canceled. Man.
I know. Not even public access.
Oh, man, it's terrible. Oh, well. Well, this is John Young with the Disc Jockey News TV, and Ben Stowe from NLFX Pro. Good night.